My name is Mike Hernandez. I am a lieutenant with the police department. I've been there actually 32 years today. But that's not all I'm celebrating today along with you guys for this day. I'm also celebrating my wife's birthday today, so happy birthday, honey. While at the police department, I've had the opportunity to work in patrol, special operations, gang unit, SWAT, narcotics, and I've loved every minute of it. In fact, when younger guys at the PD ask me how much longer, I keep telling them I'm going for the record. And I'm gonna keep doing that as long as I just enjoy doing what I'm doing. I'm also going to skip what I started with at the beginning because I believe Mr. Valenzuela already covered it with the what this day is all about. The Guerrero family. My mom's family, the Guerreros, interpreted as warriors, were immigrants from Mexico. They came to the United States and received their green card or permanent resident cards, which allowed them to live and work in the United States permanently. Pablo and Olivia Guerrero, my grandparents, or as I referred to them as Apa and Ama, had 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. My mom, Fidelia Guerrero, interpreted as faithful warrior, was the 4th oldest. My grandfather brought his family to the United States so he could to better themselves. They picked cotton here in San Angelo and picked potatoes in Pocatello, Idaho. So as you can see, their contribution at the beginning was basically being a part of putting clothes on our back and food in our stomachs. But that was just the beginning. So back to my mom. At 5'2", 115 in her prime, she lived up to the translation of her name, Faithful Warrior. You see, she basically raised 4 boys on her own. She married at 18, had me at 19. I'm the oldest of 4, but was divorced by 29. I was just 10 years old. She immediately brought us home from Columbus, Georgia, and dropped us off with my grandparents so that she could begin to work. I'll never forget those days since my mom never talked much Spanish at the home, and my grandmother told me day one, "Si no me puedes hablar en español, no vas a comer." And I said, "Frijoles y huevos, ama." My mom's first stint with SASD lasted about 4 years as she began a year-long battle with leukemia. Thankfully, I had just returned from the Marine Corps, gotten on with the police department my very first year. She began her battle at MD Anderson, and she was there about a year. Thankfully, gas was just about $1.15 back then. My wife and I made those trips every other weekend for that year. She went through chemo first and then continued on to needing a bone marrow transplant. And of course, MD Anderson goes through a process. They started to check with her brothers and sisters. Remember, there's 9 more of them. And the last one was the match. But right before they got that match, they advised us, her sons, 4 of us, that we would be checked next. And from what I understand, it's quite painful, so I was very thankful of my Uncle Paul to be a match. So my mom, the warrior, she's now at that point in remission, thank you, Lord. She comes home, and you know what she does. She has to get back to work. She continues to provide for a couple of her sons. She starts by getting several officers and homes to clean and ends up back at SASD, where she was a maid for about 23 years of service at Glenmore and Lakeview High School. During this whole time, she continues and wants to babysit her grandkids. She actually makes us drop them off from time to time so they could spend the night with her. She actually taught my daughter how to clean. Who am I kidding? She taught me as well. It's during this time that my mother, aunt, and grandmother all decided to become U.S. citizens. I'll never forget it. Taking them down to San Antonio, how proud they were, how excited they were, how nervous they were. Why do I tell you these things about my mom, and how do they have anything to do with her contribution to the United States as an immigrant? Well, let's start with the Guerrero family as a whole. The Guerrero's contribution after being migrant workers have been the following up to this point in time. Working in such areas as mechanics, IT for college campuses, Verizon, SAISD, City of San Angelo, City of Chubbuck, Idaho, MHMR, physical therapists, construction, Nike, HEB, Surety Title, and my personal favorite, 7 military service members, of which 2 were Army, 2 Navy, 3 United States Marines, and last but certainly not least, 3 officers. Of these numbers, my mother's personal contribution, 2 Marines and 3 police officers. My brother James served in the Corps for 12 years, promoted to the rank of Staff Sergeant prior to coming home and serving alongside myself at the PD. My daughter serves as our current recruiting officer. She's been with us for 3 years and also serves as a public information officer. I failed to mention earlier, but my brother and I also serve as interpreters for the police department. And I'm not gonna lie, my Spanish is a little Tex-Mex. The Mexicanos in the crowd will know what I mean, porque saben unas palabras, pero no entiendo todo. My mom, Fidelia Guerrero, passed on 8/19 of 22, just 8 days after her 74th birthday. She was diagnosed a few years ago with dementia, and up until 6 months ago was still working 3 jobs. She was the strongest woman I've ever known. I'm thankful for having had her as long as I did. And you see, my mother's contribution started as a servant of all. Nothing was beneath her as she cleaned many a toilet to ensure her students and faculty had a clean place to go. It was quite obvious she cleaned well, as SAISD hated to see her go, and her clients as well. Her most recent clients didn't even want to let her go upon her decline, and that was all she ever knew was to clean. She even watched the maid in her last days at Shannon, watched her clean, looked at me as she left and said, "She did good." And I said, "Yes, she did." Honey, I need you to bring me Logan. I'm proud of my family, the Guerreros. I'm proud of my mom. I'm proud of my daughter. I'm proud of the Hispanic culture, as I believe we not only work to better our lives but for our children, but for everyone, just like many other cultures, nationalities, and races that make up the soul of this country. My country, your country, our country, the United States of America. In closing, I wanted to introduce you all to Logan Andrew. His interpretation of his name is Little Warrior, who I know without a shadow of doubt that he's going to contribute more than the rest of the Guerreros have ever thought that we could. Thank you very much.